Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Mediocre Movie Reviews podcast. We are here in the second episode, our first episode. Got to have an awesome guest on in Grayson. We talked about the backroom, talked about way too early award predictions, who we would nominate, who we would actually give the win to when the time came for Oscars, if they were ending, if the voting was happening right now. So we talked about that in the first episode. Today's episode, I want to focus on, first, my bottom 10 movies of the year, and then I want to talk about some anticipated releases. We talked a little bit about that at the end of the first episode, some anticipated releases, and we're going to review a couple movies in this episode that I haven't fully talked about extensively, or at least kind of recap what I think about them. But we're starting off with my bottom 10 movies of the year, which is sure to take up a big chunk of this episode. And the first one coming in at the best of the bottom 10, because we're starting from 1 to 10 basically, and 10 is the worst movie. The best of the worst so far this year for me is The Breadwinner by Nate Bargatze, a comedy film about Nate Bargatze and Mandy Moore as a couple. Mandy Moore's character has this great idea, and she goes on Shark Tank for her product, and she completely blows them away. She gets an offer, and basically the deal is, I'll do this if Nate can watch the kids, right? And so the whole movie concept is Nate Bargatze trying to watch his kids with the chaos going on. There's a lot going on in this movie, but here's what I will say about it positively is that Nate Bargatze is not an actor by any means, but he does nail the comedic timing here. If he had better acting chops, I think I would have liked this movie a little bit more, but the fact that he doesn't really takes you out of it because he's not an actor. It's clear that he's not an actor throughout the entire film, but his comedic timing is inevitable because he's a stand-up comedian. So he can get the timing down right. He can get the cadences down right when he's telling a joke, but it just feels like he's doing stand-up on the big screen in a movie setting, and that doesn't really work. I think one thing he did to kind of bolster this movie and distract us from the fact that he's not an actor is get some really good actors to be alongside him, like Mandy Moore, Will Forte, and Zach Cherry, who's very funny in this. So to cut, those guys are all fine as the supporting cast, but what this comedy boils down to is just a very mediocre comedy. A lot of jokes that hit that I actually did laugh at, but a lot of jokes that I also didn't like or didn't think were very funny. Some bits that I didn't really think were funny. It reminds me a lot of movies like that are just built to be like, oh, Dad's clueless, right? That feels like an overdone trope in the comedy genre, right? Is clueless dad tries to figure out how to do this, right? And so that feels like an overdone trope. The acting from Nate Bargatze isn't great. The comedy, he's a good writer. Like, the comedy is there. The jokes are there. They're not delivered well. None of the kids are great actors. Not that you expect them to be, but that takes you out of it too. And overall, the movie is just kind of a mess comedically. Like, it is funny, but also some of the bits are really unfunny, and the plot is just weird. And the plot doesn't make any sense, right? Because spoiler alert, when she's on Shark Tank, Lori says, before she gives her the deal, she says, I'll only do this deal if your husband watches the kids. And, like, obviously nobody would ever say that, right? And so it's just cheesy, and it's meant to be like a cheesy family comedy for everybody to go see together. I understand that, and so I'm not giving it too much heat for that. That's why it's not further down on this list. But the next movie on this list is a movie called In the Gray, starring Henry Cavill and Jake Gyllenhaal, an action movie that really doesn't have a ton to it. If you look at a movie like In the Gray, first of all, there's like no promotion for this movie whatsoever. It's just painfully average, right? Gave it a 2.5. Also gave The Breadwinner a 2.5 because it's just painfully average, right? It is painfully average. I do actually like both Gyllenhaal and Cavill in this. I think Cavill especially is good. I think the acting is good, but the action is just mediocre. It's way too long. There's just a lot going on, and so it's hard because it's just one of those like mid-action films. It reminds me a lot of like a Jason Statham film, the ones that he basically just has been doing his entire career now after like Hobbs and Shaw or Fast and the Furious or whatever. That's just kind of what he's been doing, is like these action movies where it's basically the same plot, but it's just him playing a different, slightly variant on another character that's already played. Like that's just something that he has done and will continue to do, and that's kind of what In the Gray feels like to me. Mediocre action movie with decent acting and a good score, but it was pretty boring throughout. It really, really drags, and you don't want an action movie to drag. I think it's way too long, and it's not even that long, right? I think it's way too long, and it's only an hour 37, right? It felt way too long. It felt boring, so that's kind of where we're at with that. The next movie on this list is one that I think people might disagree with, and that's the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I got nothing out of this movie. I think it legitimately is terrible. Like, this is one of my least favorite movies of this year. Like, the ones on this list below this are bad, but this movie is bad, right? There is just nothing here. It's a fun ride. I saw it in 3D. That was a fun experience, but it's not good. Chris Pratt is just terrible as Mario. I cannot get over my disdain for that. Even if this movie was fantastic, I would still sit here and talk to you about how terrible Chris Pratt is as Mario. I don't know what the decision making was. I don't know why they did it. And even if they did it, like casting Chris Pratt in itself would not have been a bad idea on paper if he had any plans to actually play Mario. But he steps up to the mic and he gives this Brooklyn, just a middle-aged Italian guy voice, gives literally no attempt to be Mario. I hate the way that he plays it. It might be the way that they've told him to play it, and I still don't care, because that's even worse. If you're making a Mario movie and you're casting Chris Pratt and you're telling him to just be like an Italian guy, that's disingenuous, and that's not what you should be doing for this film, because that's not what Mario should be, right? So that's not good. You turn your brain off, you have fun. That's basically what this movie is. Cameos are dope. Glenn Powell, Star Fox. I really hope we see him in the future, because the way that he enters and the way that he plays a role in this film, I think Glenn Powell actually was very good. I'm not usually a huge Glenn Powell guy, but I genuinely did think he was good here. I think the voice acting, other really than Chris Pratt, is pretty good. Like, Charlie Day's fine. Donald Glover just was really funny as Yoshi without doing much. I think he just was having fun in the booth. Obviously I'm not a big Brie Larson person. She was just fine as Rosalina. Anya Taylor-Joy is just fine as Princess Peach. There's no phenomenal voice acting in this movie. Like, Jack Black is Jack Black. We all knew we were getting with him. And Benny Safdie was a weird choice for Bowser Jr. I stand by that. I'm not sure what that voice was. I'm not really sure why they cast Benny Safdie. I love the Safdies, and I think Benny is great in a lot of things, and he's a great director for a lot of reasons, but I just was a weird choice. They wanted big names. They got big names, and that's kind of the point of voice acting, is to get big names. And a lot of times those big names will put butts in seats, but they won't give you the greatest performances, and that's kind of what happens with the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Plot is all over the place, if there even is one. It's a bad plot. The story falls apart. So overall, just not a good film at all. Moving on to the next film on this list, Pizza Movie. Gaten Matarazzo's first attempt at his own film. Gaten Matarazzo, Sean Giambrone, trying to kind of lead this film. It's just not very funny, and it's not very good. It's way too weird at some points to just even be like a comedy or be funny. It's absurd, but it's a little bit too absurd. I don't have a lot to say about this one, because I watched this movie at home and I was paying attention the whole time, but I really just felt so bored and so out of it, and just not invested in this at all, because there isn't really a cohesive plot. The jokes really are not funny enough to keep you laughing, keep you hooked. And with a comedy like this, you want it to be fast-paced, snappy, constant comedy coming at you. And the comedy is just kind of lame and not funny, and it's also not as fast-paced as you'd like it to be. It's an hour and 38 minutes. It's not long, but it feels long again, kind of like In the Grey did, because the comedy doesn't hit, and you just want it to be over, and that's kind of what I felt like with Pizza Movie. It's one of those movies where I was just like, I wish this movie would be over. Next one on this list, Chris Pratt makes another appearance because the next movie on this list is Mercy. This is about Chris Pratt as a member of the police department who has now been accused of murdering his wife, and now has an hour to convince, or an hour and a half, I think. An hour and a half to convince an AI judge that he is innocent, or else he gets electric chaired because he's already sitting in one. There is a lot to not like about this movie at all. Chris Pratt is terrible. I mean, this is just as bad as Mario, if not worse. I'm really souring on him. I will say about Chris Pratt, I love him in the Guardians movies. I think he's the perfect Star-Lord, and I love him in Jurassic World. Maybe not Dominion, but at least the very first two, especially the first Jurassic World. Maybe just the first Jurassic World. But I like him in other stuff. Like, I genuinely am a huge fan of his Star-Lord. Parks and Rec is one of my favorite shows ever, and he is genuinely outstanding in that show. And I think his Star-Lord is great again. His comedic timing in those movies, the way that he can get serious with it is good. I really actually like a lot of the stuff that he does as Star-Lord. And then, of course, you have Mercy, now that we're talking about, which is just a stinker, right? Rebecca Ferguson playing the AI judge, she's not great either. Neither of them were very good. The way that this movie ends is really, really bad. AI or human, we all make mistakes, is like legitimately a line that Rebecca Ferguson's character says, her AI judge says. AI or human, we all make mistakes. I think maybe Chris Pratt says that. Either way, that's one of the hardest I've laughed in a theater this year, and that was not because it was a comedic line, right? But yeah, I mean, this is just bad. Like, the story is interesting, the visuals are kind of cool, like, I like the concept of what we're seeing, right? I saw it in 3D, it was actually pretty cool. The fact that, like, you can see all of this being played out in real time. He's accessing audio files, phone calls, all of this technology stuff, I think is actually really cool. But the acting is bad, all across the board, and I think it's just a dumb concept with the AI thing, but I really did like the technological aspects, the fact that the movie kind of runs on the hour and a half timer, like it's pretty real time with that. This is only 100 minutes, right? So it basically is running completely on that timer, give or take a few minutes probably. At the end, once the timer's already up, so like it's running on the timer. I think that's actually a very cool concept. I think it's a very cool concept with all the stuff moving around and all the images and audio files and phone calls and videos and security camera stuff, and actually working through the case and figuring out what happened. I think is actually a really cool concept. So I will give them that. But overall, just not a great movie. Next on this list is You, Me, and Tuscany, directed by Kat Coiro. This is a film about a girl who meets an Italian guy in New York City, played by Halle Berry, the girl. Meets an Italian guy in New York City who says he has an empty villa in Italy. She was supposed to go to Italy on a trip that was not going to happen anymore, but she decides to go by herself, and breaks into said villa that she was told was empty. And then when she's there, the guy she met in New York City, who's not there, his family shows up. She lies to them and tells them that she's marrying him, and starts this whole thing about this lie. Then she meets his cousin, right? Played by Regé-Jean Page. Probably butchered that, I'm sorry. His cousin Michael, who she ends up falling in love with, and she reveals the lie and everything, and they fall in love instead, and blah blah blah. But it's just a terrible movie. It's a 1.5 for me. We're into the 1.5 category now. It's a romance movie with absolutely zero chemistry between the leads. The script is horrible. But it is some of the most beautiful shots I've seen in a movie this year, only because they actually shot it in Italy. Story is terrible. Acting performances are laughable. And it's the least believable couple ever. I wanted to read directly my Letterboxd review, because that's perfectly how I sum up this movie. Halle Berry and Regé-Jean Page, terrible. This is what I said to my fiance after we walked out of the movie. I said, it literally felt like to me the entire time that these two people had met 2 seconds before the camera started rolling. Or even in the later scenes, I was like, or like every single time they weren't on camera, they got locked in a room out away from each other. Like, there was zero chemistry here at all. The script is horrible. I can't say much more about it. What a terrible movie. The next is Scary Movie, which I had a lot of high expectations for. It's hard, man. This movie sucked. Like, it is so ridiculously unfunny. I can't even describe it. I don't know what to tell you. They legitimately, it is so unfunny. It is so bad. I mean, maybe I'm just not a fan of the Wayans brothers and the way that they do comedy, or maybe I'm not a fan of Scary Movie type comedy, because again, like, this is the first Scary Movie I've ever seen. So I will give it a little bit of grace, because I don't know for sure if this is how the franchise has always been, and if it is, and people just love that, and there's a very niche cult fan base of that, then fine, you can like it, but I thought this movie sucked. I thought everybody was terrible in it. I thought it was completely unfunny. I thought it had very, very, very few funny bits. I thought it was trying way too hard to be funny and modern, just like with the whole Twitch streaming thing, it's just bad. It is just bad. What a terrible, terrible film. I really hate a Scary Movie. Now we're down to my bottom three of the year. Number one is Animal Farm. Andy Serkis's passion project, basically, was to make this family-friendly iteration of the story of Animal Farm that is animated. It has a freaking stacked cast: Seth Rogen, Gator Matarazzo, Steve Buscemi, Glenn Close, Laverne Cox, Kieran Culkin, Woody Harrelson, Jim Parsons, Andy Serkis, Kathleen Turner. That's before I even do the show more on the cast. Like, I believe there's even more, like, honestly. Yeah, Iman Vellani is in this. Like, this is a just ridiculous voice cast, and it just stunk. It is a completely disingenuous, completely unfaithful adaptation of George Orwell's story. It is pretty ridiculous that they just completely bashed the source material. Maybe not even intentionally, but it is just a mockery and a joke of making a mockery and a joke of the original Animal Farm. It just is. There is no other way to put it, because it genuinely is just horrible. The characters, I mean, it's meant to be a kids movie, so it's meant to, like, make it funny and meant to make it a little bit more lighthearted, but that's not what the story is. This is just not the way to tell this story. I understand that this is something that you want kids to experience, maybe, this story, and how humans can be the bad guy with these animals and everything, but, like, legitimately, I do not think this is the method of telling the story ever. I'm not sure this is a proper way to put this story on the big screen again. So, just Andy Serkis, I know that this was a huge passion project for him. I've been working on this for a long time, and it just stinks. It flopped at the box office completely. I'm sure they were expecting a way better return at the box office than they got. But that's my third to last. Second to last is Scream 7. I did go see it. I regret going to see it. I'm a big Scream fan, so I wanted to see it just to say that I've seen it, but it just is a terrible movie. This is all I wrote on my Letterboxd review. I said, just a stain on a historic franchise. That's all it is. That is the most bare bones way I can put it. That is the most simple, but also completely true and effective way I can put it. An absolute stain on a historic franchise. It's just terrible. The whole AI deepfake stuff, really, really bad. Matthew Lillard, I'm glad he came back, because I love Matthew Lillard. It's a big part of the reason why I saw the movie. He does the best he can, but this movie is just terrible. The plot is bad. The AI deepfake stuff is just such a joke. The killers are completely forgettable, and they're just not Scream killers. They're not. It's just so ridiculous to me, because there's legitimately no reason why they should be the killers. Like, the one woman is mad at her for not being in New York when they were killing people in New York. When we see Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega's characters fighting against Scream, the Ghostface killer in New York, they're like, Sydney, you weren't in New York. I have to kill you for that. Or, just like the one random asylum worker who we see for 5 minutes ends up being a killer. Legitimately, when he pulled his mask off, I looked at the buddy I was seeing the movie with, and I said, who is that? Like, legitimately, I did not remember. I watched the whole movie, didn't even look at my phone once during that movie. Like, I paid attention the whole time, and I was like, legitimately, who is that? And so it just really was not good at all, and it's just such a nostalgia piece. Yeah, I mean, and the acting is bad. Like, I think Courtney Cox sucks in this movie. Nev Campbell's no better. Isabel May is no better. Like, Mason Gooding, I never thought he's been good in anything. I think the only good actor in this movie was Joel McHale. Don't know why he did it, but I'm glad he did because he was the only person who was a good actor, except for maybe Matthew Lillard. But Scream 7 is terrible. And my bottom, one of my favorite horror franchises completely ruined by a new trilogy, Rennie Harlin's The Strangers Chapter 3. I love The Strangers. When I watched that first movie a couple years back, I fell in love with these movies. I watched all of them that existed before the new trilogy came out. And then the new trilogy comes out. The first one is bad, but there is hope for the future. The second one is terrible, and there is waning hope. The third one crushes any hope we possibly could have had. If there was any chance this movie was going to be good, it was ruined in like the first 10 minutes. This is a horrendous movie. One of the worst films I have ever seen in my life. It is a hilariously bad ending to a hilariously bad trilogy that ruined one of horror's best franchises. Madeline Pesh finally gave up. She really tried those first two movies through a bad script, through a terrible plot, through just a genuinely horrible production. She really tried to just put the whole thing on her shoulders. But she gave up in 3. She knew what was happening. She knew she just needed to cash a check, and I do not blame her 1 second. If I was the lead in the first 2 films and they made me film a third one and I saw the reaction to the first 2, I would legitimately lose my mind. I would be like, you know what? I'm done. The acting is terrible. Everybody's forgettable. Completely a horrible movie. Just trash. Not The Strangers at all. It's just not what The Strangers is meant to be. The Strangers is not meant to be a big chase movie. It's really not. It is not meant to be like a survivor finds, like it's supposed to be. Like, they do not let survivors happen because they really, like, they are just brutal for reasons that they do not disclose, and that's what makes them terrifying. But you see way too much of their emotional connection. We don't care about who the strangers are emotionally. We do not, because we know that they are, like, we don't care about their backstory. Like, 10% of this movie is just us seeing the strangers as kids. Like, we don't need to see that. That is not the point of this story. So The Stranger sucks. That trilogy is the worst trilogy in horror, and I think that is completely fair to say, personally. I think that's completely fair to say. I mean, I just don't understand how anybody could look at those movies and say that they were good, right? I don't understand how anybody could look at those movies and see that they were good. But the next thing that I want to talk about in this podcast episode is going to be some anticipated releases. So what am I looking forward to in the next little bit of time? I am cautiously excited for Spider-Man Brand New Day. We've seen some new promotion for Spider-Man Brand New Day. I'm excited for the Scorpion because I love Michael Mando. I forget his last name. I'm so sorry. In Breaking Bad, I think he's fantastic in Breaking Bad. I was very excited to see him playing a Spider-Man villain. I was sad that we didn't know he was coming back until this movie. I was sad that he wasn't going to come back. Excited to see him. Excited to see what they have for Keith David. Just hearing his voice in the trailer is really good. I am not the biggest fan of Tom Holland's trilogy. Homecoming and Far From Home, I think, are fine movies. I think Far From Home is a little bit more on the bad side. No Way Home, I think, is terrible on a rewatch, but I will never forget that first experience in the theater, sitting in row A because it was completely sold out with my buddies, looking up at the screen, breaking our necks, but seeing that Toby cameo, seeing the Andrew cameo. I am an Andrew Garfield fan through and through. I think he's the best Spider-Man, so seeing that was fantastic. So now that he's getting his fourth, which congratulations to Tom Holland for getting a fourth, the only one of the Spider-Men to do it. So congratulations to him for that. So I am cautiously excited for Brand New Day. There's just so much we don't know about Sadie Sting's character. I think my issue with the movie is that I think it's going to have too much going on, and it's going to be really hard to focus on what they want us to focus on, because we don't know what Sadie Sink's character is going to be doing. Then we have the Hulk and the Punisher and the Scorpion, and we don't know what Keith David is doing. We know that Tombstone will be in the movie. We know that he's fighting against that Red Army of people. Mr. Negative could be in the movie. We haven't even heard a thing about him. So, like, legitimately, like, there is so much that could be going on, and we just have no idea. So, I don't know. We don't know. I have no idea what's going on with that, but I am cautiously excited for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Talking about the Odyssey a little bit, I'm again cautiously excited. Well, this will be the last movie I talk about in this one. We'll wrap it up after this, but I'm cautiously excited. I think the acting is going to be great, but I just think some of the trailers look like they're doing too much to make it a little bit too modern. I'm cautiously excited, but I do think it's going to be a blockbuster. I think it's going to be a great film. I think there's going to be some serious buzz for Matt Damon for an Oscar, maybe even Robert Pattinson for an Oscar. It's going to be getting all the Oscar buzz really up until award season, I think. It's going to hold on throughout whatever comes next. I'm also cautiously excited for Digger. We've seen some promo for it. Tom Cruise is just this bigger Southern guy, just having fun. I think he's going to do great. The way that they're promoting it, it kind of seems like it might be his last film. Like, he might be retiring. I said this on Twitter, but I think if he wins the Oscar, it might turn into a retirement speech, his victory speech. So that is a very real possibility. But yeah, those are kind of the three movies that I'm looking forward to right now. I'm seeing Supergirl today, so my review for that will be out later. Hopefully it's not trash. But if you guys did enjoy this episode of the podcast, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Or if you're listening on Spotify, please be sure to give us a rate and a review on Spotify. That would be much appreciated. We will see you guys next time.